Hey everyone, how you doing? Welcome to the channel. Because we're coming up towards the end of the year, I thought it was time for my annual series check-in where I go through every single series that I've currently got open. So as with last year, I'm going to go through all of the series that I've currently got, what I call actively ongoing. So this is series that I haven't previously parked or soft DNF'd, ones that I'm actively reading or waiting for the next book to come along. And I'm going to also include all of the books or all of the series that I've touched this year. Within that, I'm not going to include the series that I list as not continuing in my monthly stats. So these are the ones where I've read the first book, but I've decided, no, I'm not going to continue. Although I got to the end of the first book, I didn't DNF it. I decided I wasn't going to pick up the series and add that to my ongoing list. So with this one, I've got 5 categories as usual. I've got the ongoing, so these are the series that I'm actively in the middle of reading. There's a book, or at least one book, that's been released that I haven't yet read, so there is something for me to move on to whenever I choose to do so. I've then got the up-to-date, which is kind of the same, it's just that there isn't that next book in the series that's already been released, so I'm waiting for that one to come through. Now the parked category is kind of an extension of that. These are books or series that I'm up to date with, but there's no real news on when the next book is going to be coming out, so it could be a while, and maybe we've already been waiting for quite a while for that next book to come along. So I kind of feel bad keeping track of that actively on my spreadsheet because it's going nowhere, and I'll open the series up again when the next book comes out or when there is news of that next book coming out. We've then got the category I'm calling soft DNF. So these are the ones where I haven't touched that next book in the series for quite a while. And I just, if I'm being honest with myself, I can't see when that's going to be. I have no idea when I'm going to get to this series again because I just don't currently have the motivation for it. So again, I'm going to stop actively tracking it. It'll still be on my spreadsheet. It'll just be hideable under filters. So if I do come back to the series at any point, then it's still there for me with all the information. And then the last one is finished. So these are literally, as it sounds, the series that I've read the last book of this year. Now, the one caveat, I suppose, with that when I'm talking about this year, at the moment, at the time of filming, it is mid-November, so I'm not going to include anything from this point onwards if I'm intending to read it, just in case I don't, or even if I'm in the middle of reading it, because we don't know what's going to happen. So, for instance, Death's Disciple by Emma L. Adams, series that I'm reading book 1 of at the moment, I'm likely to continue with and add it to my ongoing series list, but I've not finished that book as yet. So I want to be sure before kind of preempting it and including it on this list. So with that said, let's go into it. I've got 45 series to go through today. Last year when I had a look through to check my notes, I had 44 series. So with all of these series finished, started, parked, soft DNF'd and so forth, I've changed by exactly 1. So how's that for consistency, I guess? Let's go through these series anyway and see what we've got. So I'm going to start in alphabetical order, which puts me, as with last year with Ashes of Averin by Thiago Abdallah. I'm up to date on this series. I've read 2 books of 2 that are available. Whenever I'm talking the numbers of books available, I'm not going to include any novellas. It's just the main novels within a series. And this one, I've no idea when the next book's going to be coming out. I've not heard anything. I've not spoken to Thiago for a while on it. So I don't know if there is news, but I've not seen anything. So this one I'm going to put into the parked category, waiting for that news. Then we've got Black Tongue by Christopher Buehlman. This one I'm up to date with. Again, I've read 2 out of 2 books. The second book in the series, or kind of first, it was a prequel in terms of chronology, was The Daughter's War. I read that a couple of months ago. Didn't really like it that much, if I'm honest. It was my lowest rated book of the year so far with 2.5 stars. But I am going to continue the series because I really liked The Black Tongue Thief, and I'm hoping that whatever it is, whenever it is, the next book is going to be similar. Now, because this one wasn't released too long ago, I'm going to keep it in the up-to-date category rather than parked, because you need a bit of time to see whether there's going to be a big wait for that next book. Next series is in a similar position, actually. It's The Blood Scouts by Phil Williams. Again, I recently read the second book in the series. This one was Drown Deep, so I'm up to date with this one. Again, I didn't like it nearly as much as the first book in the series, but it's another one that is a new recent release, and this one with a good timetable of release so far, I'm going to keep in my up-to-date category. Next up, I've got John Gwynn's Bloodsworn Saga. So this one is one of the few series, there's not been too many, that I've finished this year. I read The Fury of the Gods again just recently, so I'm happy to have this first marker in my finished column. We've then got The Bound and the Broken by Ryan Cahill, and this one is going to be a familiar story for a little while. Certainly looking back at the last couple of check-in videos that I did each year. This one I'm up to date with. The release schedule puts it normally around end of the year to start of the next year, so in the next couple of months we'll be coming up for book 4 in this series. So for the moment, this one is going into up to date. We've then got The Brotherhood of the Eagle by Tim Hardy. So this is one of my ongoing series at the moment. I'm enjoying it. I've only read one book of the 4 that are now available. So this is going to be one of my plans, I would imagine, for next year to make some movement with this series and potentially look to be finishing it. But for the moment, it's going into the ongoing list. I've then got Burn Red Skies by Kirsten Espinosa-Rosero. This one, I'm kind of not sure what's going on with it, if I'm honest. I'm up to date with the series. I've read both of the books that are currently available. I'm sure when I spoke to Kirsten some time ago now, she said that there was potentially going to be a third book in the series. So for the moment, I'm going to put this one in parked because I don't know what's happening with it. But rather than calling it complete, because I've read the 2 books, if there is another book that does come along at some point, I'll just take it out of the parked category. Then we've got The Crow's Gambit by Alex C. Pearce. This is an ongoing series at the moment. I've read one of the 2 books that are available. I've got the second one on my shelf ready to go whenever I get round to it. So again, this is one that's potentially going to be part of my 2025 reading plan, which I haven't put together yet. So for the moment, this one goes into ongoing. I've then got The Dandelion Dynasty, or Dynasty, depending on how you want to pronounce it, but I'm a Brit, so it's Dynasty. This one is by Ken Liu. There are 4 books in this series. I've read 1 book and put it onto my ongoing series list back in whatever month it was earlier this year that I read The Grace of Kings. Since reading it, I have rethought my my kind of plan with it, and I've decided that I am going to DNF this series because I didn't really enjoy it too much, and some of what I've heard about the next books don't fill me with confidence that I will enjoy those. So I have unhauled the series to a new loving home, and this one I'm going to put it into my soft DNF category just because I don't have a hard DNF category, but this one is definitely a DNF series for me. We've then got The Dragon Spirits by L.L. McRae. This one is an ongoing series. I've read both of the books that are currently available. Third book is in the works. It's going to be a little bit of time to get to because there are other works that the author is in the middle of as well at the moment. But whenever this third book does come out, I will be picking it up and marking it down as a completed series. But for the moment, this one is going into up to date. I've then got a new series that I started just last month. This is the Earthburst Saga by Craig A. Faulkner. Book 9 is available. I'm not sure if that's the end of the series or if it's ongoing, but there are currently 9 books available. I've read just one of them, so this is going into my ongoing series because it's another one that I'm going to continue relatively soon. I might do something with it this year. If not, I'll certainly be continuing this series in 2025. I've then got Empire of Ruin by David Green. This is a 4-book series of which I've read book 1 and not continued with so far. I did enjoy it though. I liked the world building and the magic in this in the first book in this series. So I am going to be looking to continue this one. The kind of downside for me is that book 1 is an audiobook. I listened to it, but the rest of the series isn't available on audiobook. So it's harder for me to find the time to get it. It's easier for me to fit in an audiobook basically, so that's disappointing in terms of the way that I'm consuming my books at the moment, but I'm going to continue looking at this series. Hopefully I might be able to get to it before too long and continue through it, but it's going into my ongoing category for the moment. I've then got the Empire Trilogy by Raymond D. Feist and Jenny Wirtz. This one, I've read one of the 3 books, Haven't got round to the next one as yet, so it is an ongoing series for me, but again, it's one that I'm hoping to continue with for too long. This one is available on audiobook, so hopefully, as I've just said, I'll be able to fit this one into the schedule a little bit more easily than some of the others. I then got to the Fallen Light series by H.C. Newell. So this one, I've read the first book, I haven't read the second yet, but it is on my 2024 reading plan, of which I'm running out of time to complete. So for the moment, because I can only speak as to the books that I've actively read so far, this one is going into the ongoing category, and hopefully I'll be moving along and moving through the 3 books that are available at the moment. I've then got The Final Architecture by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This is a 3-book sci-fi series which I eventually managed to get around to starting after it was on my reading plan for at least 2 years, but I did read the entire series this year, so this one goes into the finished category. Firemain Saga is next. This is a series by Raymond D. Feist. Again, it's a trilogy I started and finished this year, so like The Final Architecture, the Firemain Saga goes into my finished category. Fractured Orbit is next by Herman Stoneagel. This one, I don't know actually how many books there are going to be. There are 3 so far, and I've read all 3 of them. They've been on a pretty good release schedule as well, so I'm going to put this one in my up-to-date category because that's where I am at the moment. I've then got Gifts of the All Tree by E.L. Lyons, and I don't know what's happening in terms of the release schedule for this one. I know book 2 is being worked on. It might not be too far away, but because it was quite a while ago that book 1 was released, and I don't have a date for book 2, I'm going to put this one temporarily at least in my parked category, ready to come out when book 2 does come out, because I did enjoy book 1, Starlight Jewel, and I will happily continue this series when it's available. I've then got The Graven by Essa Hansen. This is again a 3-book sci-fi trilogy. I've read book 1, I haven't gone any further in the series as yet, so this one is going in my ongoing category. I do want to continue with this series. I had quite a good time with book 1, but it's another one of those where book 1 is available and I listen to it on audiobook, and then the rest of the series isn't available. So that is so frustrating for a lot of readers, and yeah, I am one of those. I like to read the entire series in the same medium, generally speaking. So if it's available on audiobook, I want the whole series available on audiobook. I can see it for self-published authors where it does cost a lot of money to produce an audiobook, and it's maybe not as easy for a self-published author having to fund that themselves. But again, it still costs money, but for a traditionally published book or series, I think there's no excuse. They should make a commitment to the full series in audiobook if they're going to do book 1 in audiobook. That's just my my kind of 2 cents, as they say, on it. Unpopular opinion, I don't know, but that's what it is. Moving on anyway, we've got The Heart of Quinaria by B.S.H. Garcia. This one is a 2-book series so far. I'm looking forward to the next book coming out. It's going in my up-to-date category because I've read the books that are available at the moment and enjoyed doing so. I've then got The Illborn Saga by Daniel T. Jackson. This one's going to be a 4-book series. I'm up to date with this one at the moment as well, having read 2 books out of 2. Book 3 is coming, I think it's around February 2025. I've got a review copy coming out to me a few weeks before that one comes out, so that'll be one of my early 2025 plan reading books. I've then got another new series to me, Keiko by Mike Brooks. This one is a trilogy, a sci-fi trilogy, which I started earlier this year. Again, had a good time with it. Haven't continued the series as yet, but I do intend to at some point. So this one's going into my ongoing category. The Last Legacy by James Logan is next. This one, there's only 1 book out so far, which I have read. So this one I am up to date with. I did have a look because I've seen a cover reveal for book 2, but I didn't see a date. So it is actually another year until this one's going to be coming out. It's scheduled at the moment as October 2025. So a long wait for it, but it is currently up to date and it stays in that category. Then I've got The Legend of Tell by JDL Roselle. This one I haven't touched for a little while. It's a 4-book series. I did have the first 2 books on audio and it's been removed from my category because it was part of the Audible Plus catalogue. I read the first book, didn't listen to the second book in time, and it came out of the catalogue and has been removed from my device. So that's frustrating, but it's a lesson learnt for me. But I've got 3 books left in this series anyway that I will get to at some point soon, I hope. So this one's staying in my ongoing category. Next up is Legends of the Bruhai by Tori Tekken. I don't know when book 2 is going to be coming out. Hopefully it's not going to be too long before we get some news on that one, but I am up to date at the moment. So this one is in that category with 1 book read out of 1 published. I've got Mages of the Wheel next by J.D. Evans. This one is a 4-book series, I believe. I think it's a finished series. I think it's 4 books and either a prequel book or a prequel novella. I'm not really sure. But anyway, this one, I've read 1 out of the 4 books at the moment. And it's another one that I've not gone back to and read the second book. And I've kind of lost the motivation to, for the moment at least. So I am going to put this one in my soft DNF category because when I'm looking forward, I can't see when I'm going to be getting to book 2 in this series. So we'll see if that changes next year, but for the moment it's a soft DNF. Next up is Malatu by James Lloyd Doolin. I am 2 books into this series. There are 2 books that have been published so far, so this one is going into my up-to-date category. Again, don't know yet when the next book is going to be on this one, but it's not been a bad release schedule for this series so far, so hopefully that continues and I can continue the series. I've got Mistland by Kian N. Ardlan next. This is kind of a similar situation, but it's just 1 book through so far, which I have read. And I've got no information on when the next book's going to be coming out on this one, because it's been a little while for this one though. I am going to put it into my parked category so I can kind of take it off my list for now and revive it when it does, when we do get some news about book 2 coming out. I've then got The Prima Terra by S.A. Folin. This is a 4-book, I believe, at the moment, sci-fi series. I've read the first book, haven't gone on yet to book 2. I remember saying last time that this is a real book that I wanted a rest from after I read it. I've had a rest from it now, so hopefully I'm going to be able to pick this series up again before too long. It is quite a lengthy one. They are quite chunky books, so it does take a little bit more planning to fit it into my schedule because it's not available on audio, but for the moment this one's an ongoing series. I've then got The Reborn Empire by Devin Madsen. This one is kind of the bane of my TBR, I think. I've read 2 books of the 4-book series. The next 2 books, again, they're not available in audio. Otherwise, I probably would have finished it by now. But just trying to find the time to fit those last 2 books in hasn't been good for me, even though I've had it on my reading plan. It was on last year's reading plan, I think. So I've decided I'm going to put this one in soft DNF because if I've been trying to get to it for the last couple of years and I haven't done yet, that tells me something. I'm obviously not too motivated to get back to this series, even though I do kind of still want to finish it at some point. We've then got Resonance Crystal Legacy by Delilah Warren. This one is 2 books soon. The second book isn't released yet, but I will be reading it when it does come out because I really enjoyed Petitioner's book 1 in this series. So for the moment, this one's going to be going into up to date. Next up is Ringlander by Michael S. Jackson. This one's kind of a bit weird because it's actually the same situation as last year when I did this version, that last year's version of this video. I've read 2 books, but there's only been 1 published so far because I did editing on the second book in the series. We've seen no movement as yet. I've seen no news as to when book 2 is going to be coming out. So because of that, I'm going to park this series because even when book 2 comes out, I'll already be up to date, even though there will be, I'm sure, some changes since I last saw it. Next up is Rhaenyra Chronicles. So this one was revived. It was on my soft DNF category last year, so wasn't even included, I think, in last year's video. There are 4 books at the moment. I think there is a 5th book at some point. I don't know if it's been released just recently or if it's still waiting to be released. But anyway, 4 books at the moment. I'm now 2 books into this series, and it is one that I'm going to be continuing. So this goes into my ongoing category. The Sea of Souls saga is next. This is by N.C. Scrimgeour. There's 1 book so far. I don't know when book 2 is going to be coming out, but because that was the same situation in last year's video. I'm going to park this series for now. When the next book comes out, I will be picking it up and reviving it from the parked category because I had a really good time with it. I definitely enjoyed it as one of my highlights of last year's reading. Next up, I have got Sibling Sons by Joshua Scott Edwards. This is 2 books so far. I've got 1 book that I've read, 1 book that I haven't got round to. I wasn't too enamoured with book 1 in the series. Heard that book 2 was different. Some of the bits that I didn't like so much wouldn't be included. So that's promising, but it hasn't filled me yet with the confidence and the motivation to go and pick this one up. So I'm going to soft DNF this series for now. Next up, I've got Songs of Chaos by Michael R. Miller. This one, there are 3 books released so far. I've read all 3 of them, so I'm up to date. I don't know when the next book's going to be, but because it's not been too bad as far as the release schedule and the time between book 3 being published and now, I'm going to keep this one in up to date for the moment, and we'll see where we go from there. I've then got Stone and Sky by ZS Diamante. This one, I think there are 3 books released at the moment, but I've only read 1. All I do know for absolutely sure is I'm not up to date with this series as yet, so it's going into my ongoing list. I do want to continue it. I did have a good time with book 1 in the series, so yeah, hopefully that will continue into book 2 and beyond. The Stormlight Archive is next. Well, this one is currently 4 books. Book 5 is going to be released soon. It's December, I think it is, this year. But I'm still not up to date with this series, despite all of the opportunity I've had to get up to date with it. I've read now 3 books, so I'm pretty much, for the last few years, I'm going along at 1 book per year. So maybe next year I will read Rhythm of War, I don't know, but maybe it's because of the size of it, sort of like 1,000 pages per volume. That's a bit daunting, a bit off-putting, but yeah, I haven't got round to this one, even though I can do audio for it, and will do audio when I do get to it. I just don't know where that one's going to be. I do plan it at some point though. I'm not in any hurry to knock it off so that I can get to book 5 when that comes out. I'll leave that one. I'm not a massive super fan who wants to read it as soon as possible. So yeah, this one I'm going to keep in my ongoing series list for the moment and see what next year brings. We've then got The Sun Chronicles by Kate Elliott. This is a sci-fi series that I read the first book of. Really enjoyed it, actually. I had a good time with it. Book 2 is available, so it's an ongoing series for me, but I actually left this one because I think there was going to be quite a wait until book 3 was published, so I wanted to leave it until closer to that time, basically, rather than having such a big gap in between book 2 and the final book in the series. So this one's going into ongoing, and yeah, I need to review actually when that 3rd book is coming out so I can plan when I'm going to read book 2. I've then got The Talon Duology by Jen Williams. I've read 1 book out of the duology of this one, so it's up to date at the moment. Again, when checking the release schedule for this one, because I know we've had a cover reveal for Titan Child Book 2, the final book in this series. I had to look at what the release date was, and it's actually in about 2 weeks' time. It's at the end of November, and I'm filming just before the middle of November at the moment. So I went on to NetGalley, saw it had been recently added, and dropped in a request for that one. So maybe I'll get to this one before the end of the year. I don't know. If not, it'll be released by then. I'll be able to pick it up whether I get accepted on NetGalley or not, and I'll be finishing this one before too long. But for the moment, this one is an up-to-date series. I've then got Vaishivka by E.C. Greaves. This is a trilogy, a 3-book series, and I finished this year, so I read books 2 and book 3 this year, so this one goes into my finished category. I've then got War of the 12 by Alex Robbins. This one is a 4-book series. I've read book 1, I quite enjoyed it, but I haven't had the kind of motivation to go into book 2 of this one, so I'm going to put this one for the moment at least into my soft DNF category. I do need to look closer at book 2 and beyond in that series to see if I can maybe get myself a motivation to pick them up and hopefully finish the series off. I've then got Wars of Light and Shadow by Jenny Wirtz. This is one of those annoying series where I've read book 1 of 11 because it was on audiobook and I had a good time with it. I liked the narration, and then the rest of the series, until you get to the end of this one, they're not available on audiobook, and they are big, beastie books as well. So you'll read in 600-700 or so pages across 8 or so volumes before you get to books 10 and 11, which are the only other two that are currently on audio. So hopefully at some point the publisher will continue and will put books 2 onwards onto their audiobook catalogue, and I'll have a look at it. Otherwise I'm going to be picking them up and slow reading through the physical or digital editions. So this one for the moment is ongoing anyway. We've then got Will of the Wayfinder by Lily Ann Crow. There are 3 books available in this series so far. I've read one of them, so this one's an ongoing. I do have book 2 available to me. I do want to continue it. It's just a case of when that one's going to be. And then the last one on the list for this year's series check-in is The World of Lunaria by L.L. McRae. I've now read 2 of the 4 books in this series, so I've got Easter, I think, is the next one in this list, which I will be picking up at some point soon. I've got the audiobooks for these as well, so it gives me a bit more opportunity to get to them, but this one is going into my ongoing series list. So there we go, there's my not quite whistle-stop tour through the 45 series that I've got ongoing at the moment or have touched in 2024 so far. I like doing these videos because it helps me to sort of keep in check. It's a bit of management as well of my my kind of numbers as I'm going through, especially looking at what I'm actively going to continue tracking and what I need to take off my tracker and put into parked or soft DNF. So I am considering as well looking at the titles that I do have in my soft DNF category and potentially reviving a few of those as one of the categories for my 2025 reading plan. But I've not put that list together, that reading plan together as yet, so we will see how we go. Anyway, leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you thought of this series check-in. Are there any of these that you think that I need to get my finger out and get moving on with, or what did you think of the other series, whether I'm looking at continuing them or potentially not? I'll hopefully see you in the next video sometime soon. Until then though, as always, take care of yourselves, read some good books. Bye for now.